As Ralph mentioned, my name is Joe Murray, and so I will hopefully be providing much of the perspective that you are going to hear around the PG&E case study. So about 4 years ago, in San Bruno, California, there was a gas leak which resulted in an explosion for which there was loss of life. As you would expect, the public scrutiny, the public communication, yes, the public outcry was pretty substantial. And PG&E immediately went into an understanding of the lessons learned and what could they do to be able to avoid this situation ever happening again. The case study that I'm going to present to you right now is what PG&E did in response to that very, very significant and very visible event. As many of you know, PG&E is one of the oldest utilities in the United States. It covers the entire state of California. And what is interesting about PG&E, unlike other major utilities, it has a very robust infrastructure of not only electric but also gas and hydro. So when PG&E looked at what did they need to do to be able to address their security, their safety, and their asset management, they couldn't just look at one train of energy supply. They had to look at all three. And so the challenges that they face as this very diverse organization, many, many years old, 110 years old at this point, really brought to fore the challenges that they had in the area of asset management. Now, as they started to look at what are the ways to be able to address the issues, they looked at the gas distribution area, obviously electrical area and hydro, and came to the conclusion that the kind of safety issues that they had to deal with were not just gas. That in fact, if you look at the scenarios around hydro and a catastrophic failure of a hydro facility, the impact on the public was significant. So one of the first things that happened, you probably asked the question, well, if we had a gas leak, why don't we start on the gas area? It was PG&E's decision that, in fact, we had to look at the hydro side as well as these other areas. So the case study I'm going to talk about, in fact, is heavily rooted in the hydroelectric system that PG&E maintains. So let's look at the project. What was done? Essentially, what PG&E undertook was to be able to substantially improve through their information management systems and structures to substantially improve the safety and accessibility, safety for the facilities and accessibility of the information. It was clear to them that, in fact, the objective of being able to provide a more safe and more reliable network to the public was in very significant degree rooted on their ability to provide an effective information management system. And so they undertook that, and as I mentioned earlier, their starting point was in fact their hydroelectric energy generation system. What did they look at? And you'll see elements of this as I talk about what was done. Number one is replacing the paper-based system, and I think all of us know that for an organization and a utility that is 100 years old, paper is still a predominant medium for providing information. And PG&E recognized that the ability to quickly access information, to be able to ensure that in fact it was the correct information, that paper itself simply was not going to be able to do it. So the first thing that they looked at, how do we replace, how do we digitize the paper-based information that's required? Secondly, and I think this is, again, a common theme in this conference and a common theme for a lot of us as we go forward, is the ability to connect the mobile crew to the information repository. Technology today is allowing us more and more to be able to access information in the truck by the mobile worker, and PG&E recognized that those technologies were here and could be used in their objective of improving the security, safety, and reliability. And last but not least, fundamentally an information technology challenge. They recognized that they were not able to get at that information in a rapid way. They were not able to get at that information in an assured way, and that changes that were being made were not going to be reflected in a proper amount of time. So 3 fundamental strategies that PG&E recognized they needed to do to be able to succeed. Replace the paper, connect the mobile worker to their information, and thirdly, have that asset information in a form and format that was accessible, reliable, and distributed. Why? Well, I think obviously this one is fairly intuitive. Enhancement of public safety for a company like PG&E is job 1. Improve the quality of the information that's being accessed, ensure the compliance, that the requirements are being met, and last but not least, and equally importantly, is to improve the productivity of the mobile worker. So the journey began. And fundamentally, if you look at this, on the left-hand side, they started with a hydroelectric operation, what I will call the physical asset, and what they wanted to do was to be able to link what I'll call the information asset, their underlying enterprise platforms for managing their information. And as you can see here, SAP for the maintenance management, work order type of systems, and preventive maintenance activities. GIS, they use the ESRI system for being able to map their distributed assets, whether that's in the form of gas or electric. And last but not least, the Documentum Enterprise Content Management System for the capture, maintenance, management, and delivery of asset-related information that is not specifically digital in the SAP environment or the GIS environment. Now, what brought together in their plan the physical asset with the information asset was, in fact, a development of a set of processes that allowed them to, in fact, translate what was going on in the physical asset into their information assets. And here you see 2 major areas that were addressed: the standards and processes, which were essentially what they call a guidance documents, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And secondly, obviously, the asset management and the project information coming in to be able to be delivered. So they recognized that what they were talking about here were, in fact, global enterprise processes that needed to be addressed and needed to be reconciled. So what did the PG&E processes look like today, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Not at all uncommon. There's a lot of icons here, but fundamentally the issue was that the majority of the processes were built on manual shuffling of paper and people. And so if you look here, supervisor reviews and approve, clerks manually enter data into multiple systems, and this is obviously not new to anybody in this room. They recognized that if they were in fact going to get to that objective of being able to provide a safer environment, that they had to replace those manual processes and that disbursement of information through different information silos into something that in fact allowed them to talk about an integrated environment and to make use of their 3 enterprise systems, the GIS ESRI system, the SAP, and the Documentum system for enterprise content management as tools that in fact were being populated, utilized, and accessed on an automated way. Take out the manual processes, take out the paper, and make it work. Now, this slide clearly has probably been shown in this conference 15 times in the last 2 days. So the slide itself is of mild interest. The fact that a 100-year-old utility with tens of thousands of employees and hundreds of generating facilities is undertaking this is a significant journey. So what as they embarked in 2013 on the enterprise content management, and by the way, ECM stands for enterprise content management, what were the areas that were touched? And what are the processes as well as the information that were being affected by the PG&E endeavor? On the left-hand side, you see the processes that obviously need to be affected and improved. Asset management, preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, and the ability to support the mobile worker. On the right-hand side, how do we get them that information in a way that in fact is fit for purpose and meets the needs of a safe operation. So things like document data and cleanup, and big time into this is the paper, the conversion of paper. And again, I want to emphasize this is a significant challenge that an organization like PG&E faces as we talk about lifecycle management. There is fundamentally a barrier that most of us in this room face in recognizing that making paper life cycle management sensitive or enabled is a big job. And so PG&E recognized this as important. Documentum implementation, and basically what I would call this is the ability to access information from anywhere at any time. It's about being able to be in the truck, it's about being able to be in a plant, it's about being able to be at your desk, and to be able to have the search functions and the user interface that allows you to access that information in a proper and rapid way. That's what that one meant. Legacy data migration, legacy schedule migration. Obviously, we all face this need to be able to migrate, to integrate, capture, and deliver the legacy systems. And PG&E, as you might guess, with a 100-year-old company, has a heck of a lot of legacy systems. And then last but not least, to then move toward that asset management sandbox and being able to make that happen. So where is PG&E going? You see here a number of the major focus points that PG&E is going after in terms of their objective of achieving safe, reliable operations. First is obviously the records management area and the ability to have information accessible when these kind of extreme conditions occur, as well as for ongoing support and maintenance of the plant. Secondly is to be relevant to the full range of the line of business of PG&E. There's a lot of different organizations within the PG&E organization, and you can see here listed gas operations, electric operations, and then actually the hydro is in the energy supply business. So a broad range of functions that need to be addressed, as well as obviously the corporate functions of IT, legal, human resources, and that kind of thing. Now, PG&E made the decision that they had to have a common user interface, a user interface that could be spread across all of their various information retrieval functions. And they made the decision to use the Documentum D2 interface. It's a web-based interface. And the key thing around D2, quite frankly, is its configurable nature, so that you can have a standard UI tool but be able to configure it for the different businesses, because as you can guess, gas is going to be different than electric, it's going to be different than hydroelectric. And so they needed to have the ability to have that configurable UI. Obviously integral to any enterprise content management system and the ability to capture and store documents is the ability to have life cycles and electronic workflows. And so clearly, as part of this solution was the ability to identify, map, and then codify electronic workflows that could work off of this asset management information. And this is, it's a journey. It doesn't happen all at once, but PG&E recognized that ability to deliver electronic workflows for assuredness was a very important part of the journey. Fifth is the integration of some of other PG&E's mission-critical and business-critical legacy systems, and I think we've all been dealing with that. And last but not least, this concept of this word, a single source of truth. We deal a lot with that. There are many manifestations of what something looks like, how you describe a pump, how do you describe any kind of piece of equipment or a facility. And the ability to have, and PG&E's vision is to be able to have, in fact, a way to be able to access a single source of truth, regardless of the information that they're having to deal with. And you'll see here that last bullet, virtual folders. I think that's more of a, if you will, an imagery of being able to look at something and to be able to identify that information that is relevant to SAP, that information that is relevant to ESRI, that information that is relevant to the asset operations information contained within Documentum. Now, I wanted to briefly touch on PAS 55. Many of you, I'm sure, know about PAS 55. The way PG&E looked at this standard, and it's an important go-by for the PG&E organization is to use PAS 55 as a basis for things like procedures and standards. PAS 55 has the concept of a single line of vision, the ability to in fact go from one phase of a plant to another phase of the plant and be able to have that visible. And so PG&E saw PAS 55 as a way of being able to enable that and to be able to codify the standards and the procedures that would allow them to get to that single line of vision. This is obviously then implicit in that is going to be certain taxonomy and folder structures and that kind of thing that you need. But PAS 55 provides them a basis for how to be able to implement the processes for managing asset information. Obviously, integral to all this is the integration activities that PG&E has to undertake. They're using a service-oriented architectural SOA approach, but obviously bringing together the SAP system, a ESRI system, and a Documentum system is not necessarily trivial. But clearly this ability, and you know, Chris's presentation before me of talking about a hub is clearly integral to all of us of how to bring together this different information and to be able to make it usable across our enterprise. PG&E recognizes that their three enterprise systems need to be able to work concurrently together and how to be able to make that happen. So essentially, this is you know, a fairly complex slide, but I think it gives you a sense of the journey that PG&E is undertaking. At the bottom, a wide range of data that needs to be able to be managed by the organization to effectively be able to build, maintain, and operate their facilities. A next level around some of the key technologies such as collaboration and imaging. The level above that, the ability to have effective records management and archiving, both from an email perspective as well as a data system. And then going up further to some of the more advanced processes, e-discovery. In their case, they're using the EnCase system for e-discovery for search and retrieval of information. Then the second level from the top, obviously I think we all know very key, to be able to establish a set of governances to be able to manage that information in an effective way. And last but not least, the key to all information systems, if you can't find it, you ain't got it. And so they've recognized the importance of focusing on the search functions as we go across that stack. So with that, I guess I'll sit down and questions will start, but you have a sense for the journey that PG&E has taken coming out of a very, very challenging situation with the San Bruno project. Thank you very much.